Gilmore.
Corla, the Taoiseach in his speech used the verb change almost 20 times. And that's not counting the number of times he used the term reconfiguration. Taoiseach, this is not what change looks like. This is not change. This will not change anything in the life of a single family or household in this country this evening. At best, this is change delayed, change deferred, and change delayed is change denied. This is still a tired, out of touch, out of ideas, out of time Fianna Fáil government. Change was not a phrase that was high on your priority at the time of the last general election, Taoiseach. I remember something you said. You said, if the car is going well, you don't change to a Lada. And the Irish people took you at your word, hung on to the old model. It's now 13 years old. If it was a taxi, the regulator wouldn't allow it be on the road in the first place. And all you have done today, Taoiseach, all you have done today, Taoiseach, is put a few remolds, a few squirts of spray on the rust of a clapped-out model that it was a 1907 reg. Taoiseach, it's not change. It's not change. Not change we need to be talking about here. It's scrappage. We need to get rid of this government. We need a new government. The country needs a fresh start, not just some kind of, as you call it, reconfiguration of what we have already. There are only a handful of people in the country who care really about this exercise in spin that we're being presented this afternoon. They're the people who've been picked for bigger office, bigger car, and let me say, I congratulate Ministers Carey and Killeen, for whom I have personal regard, ones who've had to relinquish the size of their office or their car, and the wallflowers, who wonder why they have never had big office or a big car. This government does not care about the purpose of governing, it cares only about power. This exercise this evening is not about the revival of the economy or the revival of the country, but the survival of Fianna Fáil in government for a longer period of time than this country can afford. The purpose of government should be to reflect the will of the people, their values and their hopes and their aspirations, and it should be to lead and to navigate this country out of the treacherous waters we now find ourselves in. And above all, it should be to serve the people, to put the national community first before party politics or individual egos. And on all three counts, this Fianna Fáil Green government has failed. This is a government with no mandate. No government since the foundation of the state has had such low approval ratings, with almost 9 out of 10 people not supporting it. It no longer reflects the will of the people, and it certainly does not reflect their values. The Irish people do not want their future and their children's future mortgaged to NAMA. They do not want to take on the massive debts of reckless property developers who lived high on the boom and who were protected by their Fianna Fáil friends during the bust. This government cannot lead. To lead, you need to get people to row in behind you, and instead this government has repeatedly sown division, pitched public sector against private sector, targeted children, mothers, the unemployed, the poor, the elderly, disabled, and others who rely on public services for their quality of life. This government has put its own needs and the needs of its party before it has put the needs of the people. Your government, Taoiseach, was elected in re-elected 2007 on a set of promises. Central to these was your assertion, and you asserted it more than most, that only Fianna Fáil could manage the economy. On the 14th of May 2007, when you launched Fianna Fáil's economic policies, you said people know what they vote for when they vote for Fianna Fáil. They know precisely what they are going to vote for. You went on to say that Fianna Fáil's policies were based on responsible budgets, and that you would pass on the country effectively debt-free to the next generation. You pledged 844 million worth of tax cuts annually, including halving PRSI. Those were the things that people voted for. Instead of cutting taxes, you've cut wages. Instead of putting money into people's pockets, as you said you would do, you have taken 11,000 million out of the taxpayers' pockets in this country and used it to shore up the books of the banks and the overstretched developers. The fiction that only Fianna Fáil can manage the economy is betrayed in how fast the Irish economy has unravelled on your watch. We were first into a recession and we're going to be the last out of it. Our recession is deeper and will last longer because Fianna Fáil allowed our economy to be built on sand. You turned around the export-led economy that you inherited from Rory Quinn as the Labour Minister for Finance, and you turned it into a property bubble. Instead of attending to the long-term competitiveness of our economy, you gambled on a consumption boom. You prided yourselves on reducing the national debt, but instead you transferred that debt to every Irish household in the form of impossibly high mortgages and now the repayments for NAMA. You turned a blind eye to reckless lending by the banks, and after all, you needed them to keep the boom going. But now that the party is over, it is the ordinary people of this country who are left to clean up the mess and to pay for it. In February, there were 436,000 on the dole, 85,000 of them under 25. 283,000 people have joined the live register since the 2007 general election. 340 people have lost their jobs every day since you became Taoiseach. In 2009 alone, an average of 4 firms went bust every day. Predictions for business closures in 2010 are estimated to be around 2,000. The Insolvency Journal estimates that 5 firms have gone bust every day in February of 2010. Across the economy, in both the public and private sector, people have taken significant pay cuts. And you say that we must regain our lost competitiveness. But the question is this: who presided over the loss of the competitiveness? Ireland's economy has been losing competitiveness since 2003. And you were the Minister for Finance for most of that period of time when you presided over the soaring cost of housing or the renting of commercial property, all of which was pushing up costs and making our economy less competitive. You're happy to talk about competitiveness, all right, when it means asking a nurse on $35,000 a year to take an 8% pay cut. But where was your government support for competitiveness last week, 2 weeks ago, when the Labour Party brought in a proposal here to deal with the problems in the commercial rental sector, when you voted down a proposal that would have given some relief to the retailers who are facing serious problems of competitiveness? The reality is that you don't have a plan to create new jobs or improve our competitiveness. The only thing that we've seen so far from this government is the miserable policy of driving down wages and the quality of life and waiting to hop on the coattails of a European economic recovery. You won't even agree to the idea of an inquiry into what happened in the banking sector. And the reason, of course, that you won't agree to such an inquiry is that it will land at your own door. It will expose your own role as Finance Minister in presiding over what happened in the banking system, and particularly will not allow us to examine what happened in the month of September 2008 when you provided a blanket guarantee for the banks. Since 2007, we have seen tax revenue decline by 34% in nominal terms, from 47.25 billion to 31.05 billion. All of which demonstrates the lie that Fianna Fáil could satisfactorily manage our economy. I could deal with lots of areas in relation to the proposals that you put before us this afternoon. But I was struck by what you said about the centrality of jobs. You're right, of course. That's what the Labour Party has been saying since the beginning of this recession, and indeed since before it. But my question to you is this: if jobs are so central, why is it that it has taken you 2 years to cop onto it? You are now Taoiseach for 2 years. You had an opportunity in that month, that long lead-in that we had to endure while you were celebrating your election as leader of Fianna Fáil and before you became Taoiseach, to do the reconfiguration that would have put the emphasis on jobs. That didn't happen. It is now only belatedly being done, and now it is being done in a way that, frankly, I think adds more confusion to the organisation of government departments than it clarifies it. One of the extraordinary things that I find about today's announcement is what you have not done. Why is Minister Harney still Minister for Health? By any standards, she should be moved from that office. She has been a good minister in many departments. I acknowledge that, and has made a big contribution to public life in Ireland. But frankly, her record as Minister for Health has been absolutely hopeless. We have had, since 2007, a series of crises in the health services. From August 2007, the HICWA investigation, breast cancer services in Barrington's Hospital. November 2007, 97 women who had to be retested after review of mammograms at the Midlands Regional Hospital in Portlaoise. September 2008, an inquiry into Ennis General Hospital. November 2008, 9 lung cancer patients receiving delayed diagnosis. And while she was absent in New Zealand, we had the recent event about the unread X-rays in Tala Hospital, and indeed the unread letters of referral. Her answer and her solution to the health problems and the shortage of beds in our health system is to build private clinics under some form of a PPP arrangement. Even that policy, misguided and all as it was, has now collapsed in the new economic circumstances. Let me give you just two examples of where this, and they're local examples, two examples of where the health policies of this government is failing. Saturday morning last, I got a telephone call from the family of a patient suffering from bowel cancer who had been admitted to a hospital on Thursday last week, and by Saturday morning was still on a trolley in the A&E. And when my office contacted the hospital concerned, this was the reply, and I'm reading from a text that I received on Saturday morning. Spoke to X in A&E. There are no beds. 3 patients from A&E went to theatre this morning, and there are no beds for them either. She does not expect this to change for the next 24 to 36 hours. They are doing the best they can. This is our health service in 2010, after how many years of Minister Harney, whom you are now leaving in charge of the health service. And while I'm on local issues, and may I say that I welcome the appointment of my colleague Deputy Cuff to be a Minister of State, and I wish him well. My constituency is now teeming down with ministers, 3 of them. In 2002, it's very tough competition, Joan. In 2002, Minister Harney, together with the man beside her, Minister Martin, who was then the Minister for Health, entered into a commitment with the national rehab to be built there. They went out to tender at the end of 2008, accepted a tender at the beginning of 2009, and they are still waiting. They are still waiting for Minister Harney to sign off and to approve that tender so that that hospital can be built. My constituency, Taoiseach, can do without 3 ministers, and the best of luck to all 3 of them. What we cannot do without is the building of that hospital. And interestingly, when you reviewed the programme for government last summer, you took that hospital out of it. And the man who has now been appointed a Minister of State, whose job I would have felt was to keep an eye on these things, didn't appear to notice and didn't appear to make any complaint or to insist that it be kept in it. Taoiseach, what we have been offered here today is not a fresh start, not change. It's the same old, same old. I wish the individuals who are being appointed to ministerial office well, but this is not what the people of the country are looking for. Everywhere I go in this country, there's one question that I'm now asked. First question, when are you getting them out? Unfortunately, we can't get them out here on the opposition benches. But I do put this challenge to each of the independent members, so-called independent members of this House. If you vote this afternoon for the re-election of this government, You cannot tell them in Thurles or in Killarney or on Sean McDermott Street that you are opposing the government. You shoulder this responsibility for having kept them in office far longer than they should be in office and far longer than the people of this country want them in office.